Part of our jobs as BCBAs is targeting challenging behavior. But how can we do that in a compassionate way and making sure that the learner feels safe?
Hi, I'm Shira.
And I'm Shayna.
We are behavior analysts that create weekly content about how to teach kids with autism so that they make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little easier. Today's topic is all about compassionately targeting challenging behavior. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases.
So sometimes, you've got friends who call you just to discuss their bad day. And sometimes I call my friends just to discuss my bad day. But as a behavior analyst, I find myself wanting to come up with solutions. So my friend will call and tell me about her bad day. And I'm like, well, have you thought of this? And have you thought about this? And have you thought about this? And she'll go, Shayna, stop. What am I doing? Right? We always want to try and help and give solutions. And sometimes our friends don't want solutions. They really just want to vent. And it's the same thing when I'm calling my friends. I don't want solutions either. I really just want someone to talk to and someone to vent and empathize with me and say, yeah, your day, it sounded really hard. So when we relate that to our learners, sometimes our learners are having a tough time and, they don't necessarily quote unquote need help or need solutions in that exact moment. They really just need our empathy and they need our, hey, you've had a tough day. Let me give you some support around that.
And as behavior analysts, we really need to shift our focus from the follow through perspective, the way we kind of want to get back instructional control. And our shift has to focus to being, how can we best support our learners? I work with a lot of learners who, may come into our center needing a behavior plan. And I could tell you that the best behavior plan does not compensate for any good relationship. So sometimes we really struggle with students when we take a behavioral approach and we're really focusing on what can we do behaviorally to intervene here or to prevent. And the best solutions sometimes come from giving them a safe environment and making them feel like they belong, like they have a person who is compassionate towards them. And while this doesn't feel behavior analytic, we're going to try to make it more behavior analytic. We have to shift into a more trauma-informed or trauma-assumed approach. Hanley talks about this, Dr. Gregory Hanley, in his the new approach to ABA. And we talk about assume that everybody coming into our care has had some sort of negative experience or trauma or some way that it's making them act this way. They've had some negative experience. And by us, exerting any kind of like follow through or extinction, it's only going to make it worse.
We were talking just before this podcast and we're talking about the first then approach. And while the first then approach is really great for learners who we've been working with for a while, what about brand new learners? Do we really just have them come into our care and take away all things that are good and say, no, first you have to do all of this stuff and put all this demand on them, and then you can have your preferred things back? I mean, how terrible is that, right? So we really do need to shift our perspective into, hey, you're coming into our care. Let's make this a really safe environment for you. And let's make this really fun. And let's develop that relationship, right? That pairing ourselves with reinforcement, but let's develop that relationship. And once we have that relationship, then we can start putting those demands on them.
Right. First, give them all the good things. That's okay. They could have the best time of their life, and they could have all their favorite things. And instead of doing, first work, then you get, certain preferences or reinforcers, think about giving them everything that they love and then slowly introducing and shaping small, work expectations or demands, as opposed to the other way around. You really have to get away from an extinction-based approach or a follow-through-based approach to following demands.
Yeah. And I mean, this is true in real life as well, right? I think about, with any kid I've worked with or, my daughter, it's not just about saying, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's like, oh my gosh, you were such a nag. It's about, hey, let's have fun together. And then because we've got that relationship, I'm going to give you that feedback. And I mean, that can't always happen. I mean, that's sometimes, the ideal world, but if we can make that happen as much as we possibly can, that's amazing. The other thing that I tell people is that our job as behavior analysts isn't to dominate. Sure, we're the adults in the situation and we may be more mature, but it's not our job to, be the one with the, what do they call it? The heavy fist or the the domination of, hey, well, I know best and this and that. Really, we do want to de-escalate behavior, but we want to prevent behavior from happening in the first place and challenging behavior. And we can do that by trying to be their friend or trying to be that preferred person in their life, that safe person they can run to. The message we want to give them is, hey, we care about you a lot, not, hey, we're here to discipline.
And it can sometimes get really messy. It's not going to be easy and it's not going to go the way we want it to go. And we're really here to follow their lead. We had a situation where, a student was having a moment and there was some, mess made or property destruction involved. And we had another teacher who was watching and, very well intentioned, he really needs to clean this up. Don't you need to follow through and make sure that he cleans up this mess? He was still a little bit escalated. And it's a bit of a mind shift from, back in the past, we may have said, yeah, we need to follow through during a behavior and actually make you clean this up. But now our perspective needs to be like, no, that's really not the priority. And a lot of this is in the moment judgments of thinking, what's going to be best for the learner in this moment? Is it going to be to have them follow through with the task if they're already heightened and they're already upset? And remember, we're assuming some sort of trauma or history. Or can we let this one go and really help support and get them through the behavior and not risk any kind of break to our relationship? It's really going to be the relationship that is going to be the most meaningful, as non-behavioral as that sounds. But you can imagine it as a setting event. If they're feeling safe and they're feeling like somebody's there to listen to them and someone there who is reliable and that they trust, then you could think about that as a setting event to certain behaviors.
Pat Fryman has a TED Talk, and we can link it in here as well, but he talks about there's no such thing as a bad boy. And I think that really resonates because it's not about someone being bad. They may be engaging in negative behavior, but they're not bad. We also need to think about Shira's famous line. She always says, the learner's not giving you a hard time, they're having a hard time.
So if we see all behavior as a form of communication, then we're kind of approaching behavior as what can I learn as the professional from this behavior? So you're there to really listen. You're there to empower the student. You're there to take their lead. And then, assuming it's a little bit messy, you're thinking about what can I do differently next time? How can I create more joy? How can I create a better environment so that they may not be triggered? Or how can I make myself a safer person that they feel like they can go to or communicate with? How can I empower this learner to prevent it from happening next time? And this is very different than, tiptoeing around certain learners because we're afraid to trigger them. It's really about enriching the environment and the relationship and creating a situation where they hopefully don't need to communicate their needs in a way that is destructive or harmful.
And if we can change the environment by creating a safe place, then we can hopefully change that behavior as well.
So you're still using a lot of, traditional ABA principles because we're using a lot of shaping and priming and prompting and all of those things, but using it in a context of relationship building and of compassion. And I've just seen it work so many times where the best behavior analysts really couldn't isolate certain things within a behavior analytic setting. And then that relationship just really created such safety. And hopefully with that, you won't even need behavior plans. Obviously, if you do, the behavior plan is going to be focusing on as much proactive and positive strategies as possible to create the skills. And by creating those skills, the replacement skills, the communication, the proactive strategies, you're not just avoiding the behavior, but you're giving them a replacement to the behavior.
So you might be listening to this podcast and hearing, oh yeah, that sounds really amazing. And then you go into work and you read a behavior plan that is the exact opposite. It's, all about extinction and it's all about this. And there's just things that resonate with you that just aren't quite right. You can feel it in your gut and you're like, yeah, I don't really think this is appropriate to do. If it doesn't feel right with you, don't do it. You can't go rogue and you can't just disrespect a behavior intervention plan. But what you can do is you can contact your supervisor immediately and you can get further clarification and hopefully open a very meaningful conversation and saying, hey, let's look at past. Let's look at what's happening. Let's look at the environment and how can we create a safer environment and how can we teach some replacement skills and how can we do all of that from a compassionate lens versus, hey, I need to go in here and do this because it says this on the plan.
And today's ABA talks about a couple terms. One of them is televisability, which I believe is a made up word. But it just means that if somebody was watching you manage this behavior right now, would you be proud of it? Would you want it to go on the news? Would you want everybody watching how you're dealing with this child having that challenging behavior? And that goes along with kind of having an open door policy, having that child provide some sort of consent or assent to what it is that's happening. And if you are, it's kind of the test of your relationship. If you have that door open, and that child still wants to stay with you because you have all the best things there and the environment is that enriched, then you're doing something right. If you're struggling to keep the child in the room, then you got to let them go and rethink for yourself. Like, what am I doing wrong here? And why isn't this environment as motivating and fun and enriching as it could be?
And all the while that you're doing this, making sure that you have that communication piece, right? You're communicating with your staff, you're communicating with your supervisor, you're communicating with your supervisee, you're communicating with parents. We have a podcast on communicating effectively with parents. And, when parents are telling you about their goals to decrease negative behavior, make sure that you're listening to them, but then talking to them about how you're going to do that in a very compassionate way.
I also recommend checking out our podcast with Dr. Robert Schramm on the 7 steps to instructional motivation. So we're going to link that here.
For more information on compassionately treating challenging behaviors, click the link in and around this video or in the description to join our free How to ABA membership, where you can access more tools for ABA professionals. We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos, and leave a like and comment below if you have further questions.